Cody should be joining us shortly. Cody and I have been planning this for a long time, trying to figure out how we could both get on here and talk. So it's one of the reasons why I rented this new office, and then so I could have a faster internet connection so I could do this sort of thing. And then him and I have some really in-depth conversations about dogs, pot lickers, running dogs, hunting lions, hunting bobcats, the differences between where he hunts and where I hunt. And so we thought, man, we need to get together and just record this live one of these times. Oh, he just sent me a text that he's late. Leave it to a South Texas bobcat hunter to be late. Let me know if you guys like for us to do this kind of thing, or like for me to do this kind of thing. There's a lot of guys, younger guys, that I could get to do the live streams with me probably. The older lion hunter guys, it's all I can do to get them to just let me sit down and interview them, either on video or just the audio for the podcast. For those that don't know, I provide content for the W Supply podcast. And right now I've been real busy working. So what I did is I purchased the digital rights to the Dale ECDs from Dale's nephew. And then I gave them to W Supply to make them into a podcast. And I got one sponsor, Value Pack Dog Food. They came through and sponsored the podcast, and even before any of that had happened, I'd kind of had a run-in with one of the big dog food companies, and Value Pack had contacted me. Not only that, but Otis Llewellyn, a really good houndsman, he had contacted me and told me, he said, man, you need to feed the Value Pack. It's good dog food. So now I've been feeding it for a little over a month, and I like it. And they sponsor the podcast. So that's really cool. So if you guys have a Value Pack dealer in your area, and, like I said in the podcast, I think we need to support the companies that support what we do. There we go. Here's Cody coming on. This is Cody King. Him and I started talking a long time ago. He hunts bobcats, has running walkers, as far as I can tell, as good as they come. And we always discussing the differences between the hounds and the locations and everything. But so now, how did Cody get started?
No, my dad hunted hogs when he was younger, and when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, he started back to hog hunting with me and my brother, and we hunted hogs for forever. But now I just started out hog hunting, and when I was probably 22, 23 years old, I wanted to kill a mountain lion, and I went, and that's how I met Reuben Lossman. My brother was a game warden there in Alice, and he took me and introduced me to Reuben. And Reuben said, if you want to go hunting, we won't catch a mountain lion, but I'll take you bobcat hunting. Be here at 4:00 tomorrow morning. I was there waiting on him. We went hunting, caught a bobcat, and I came home with 2 dogs. And that's how I got started cat hunting.
Well, when you and your dad were hog hunting, what kind of dogs did you use doing that?
Pretty much strictly blackmouth curs. We had a few leopard dogs. We never had very good luck with leopard dogs. I'm sure there's great ones out there. We just never had one. We had all blackmouths.
Did they catch or just bay?
No, they caught. We had catch dogs too, but them cur dogs, they bay up a little bit on a big hog, but once them bulldogs caught, them cur dogs would catch too. And then we kind of phased out of catch dogs because the cur dogs caught so well. And but we hog hunted a lot. We caught a lot of them. And that was, I live in as far south in Texas as you can go, in a place called the Rio Grande Valley. And I was 20 years old before I knew other people hog hunted, and there wasn't many hunters down here. So but we caught a bunch of them. Hunted mostly grain fields, summertime hunting, but we hunted the brush a little bit too.
So what made you want to catch a lion? How did that? You see a picture or something somewhere, or somebody talk to you about it?
Just seeing pictures of them and videos of them on TV, and I wanted to catch one, and I went and met Ruben, and Ruben actually had a trainer lion in the pen, and he, when I went to see him, and he said, if you want to catch one, it'd be a lot. Train some dogs up and catch it yourself. And I got the short end of that stick. It'd been a lot easier just to pay somebody to take me and be done with it. But I just fascinated. I've always been fascinated with cats. There was an old man that cat hunted down here. His name was Norman Davidson, and I was really good friends with him. I knew him my whole life, and I knew it was hard. When you're young and stupid, you want to do something because everybody says it's hard, and but it took a long time to be able to catch cats consistently by myself, though.
Those two dogs that you got from Ruben, were they finished dogs or?
No, one of them was probably a 15-month-old dog named Goober, and one of them was a 3-month-old pup named Bruno, and nowhere near finished. But when I came home with him, I started hunting with Ruben, and I hunted at least 2 days a week with Ruben, probably for 5, 6, 7 years.
So he let you run those young dogs with his dogs.
Correct. Yeah, Ruben trained me, and Ruben's dogs trained my dogs, and we had a lot of fun.
So how long was it before you caught a cat without Ruben?
I don't know. I mean, whenever I was going to go hunting by myself, Ruben would loan me a dog sometimes.
Oh, wow.
But I bet it was 2 years before I caught a cat by myself. But 95% of the time I hunted with Ruben, and we'd catch one every morning at least. If we didn't catch two, we were disappointed. But that point in time, Ruben had by far the best pack of cat dogs I've ever seen.
Really? Well,
yeah, they made it look easy for sure.
And all running walkers.
Yeah, I call them South Texas running walkers. Nobody has any papers on them, and I'd be willing to bet that a lot of them had some pot liquor mixed in them 50 years ago, but for the most part, they're what you would consider a running walker. Yes, sir.
Did they line breed them, or did they just breed best to best, or I mean, did they breed outside of their? I mean, if they seen a good dog somewhere, would they take and go breed to it, or just bred out of their own?
Yeah. When you see when you listen to a lot of the stories, when you start looking into the bloodlines of these old dogs and stuff, and it's for example, Ruben, I got a dog named Jade, and she was out of Ruben's Ruger dog, who was out of Doc, but Doc was out of Robbie Hertz's good dog Yeller. They're always it seemed to me that they all talked and they pretty much tried to breed best to best.
Yeah,
somebody had an exceptional dog, everybody knew about it, and everybody tried to breed to him.
Did Ruben have? I mean, I'm sure. What was his exceptional dog? What one that you really remember that was just outstanding?
When I started hunting with Ruben had 5 dogs that were. I mean, he had more than 5 dogs yet, but he had 5 dogs that were probably all 5 individually better than anything I have. He had Doc and Benny and Beulah and Pearl and Cisco. and those were cat dogs. But that Doc dog of Ruben's, he was something special.
Well, I know you talk about jump dogs and I mean, when you talk about one like that, is it just one that does it all?
Yeah. I mean, he was one of those dogs, of course, this was back before GPS collars, but, he was one of them dogs. We'd go off hunting and we'd catch a cat and we'd go to the tree and where's Doc? And Ruben would go get his beat collar out and look around and he'd be treed over there 2-3 miles. I mean, he caught a lot of cats by himself, a lot.
You just go catch one.
Yeah.
Cold trail. I mean, a good dog like that in that country, is it necessary for him to do much cold trailing?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He would start a lot of the cats. He was cat minded. That dog would, you wouldn't see him when you were hunting. And then it was really cool because in his later life, I had a GPS collar and I used to put him on Doc and, you could just watch, if you could look at a topo map and if you were to draw a picture, draw a line where you thought cats would be in the brush, whether it be a draw or a creek or a thicket, that's exactly where Doc would go hunting. He was just one of those dogs that was smart enough to
just go find
figure it out. And that's why we caught so many cats. It's pretty bad down here, especially this time of year. The cats aren't moving right now. Half the cats are laid up with kittens and the toms are lazy and it's hot and, they don't move around as much as they do when it's cooler. But with Doc, it didn't matter. He went and found them. But them dogs are pretty special.
Now I hear you've mentioned, I know I've talked about this, the shadow bred dogs or shadow
bred. Yeah.
And they all go back to.
Doc wasn't a shadow bred dog, but Cisco and Pearl were, or no, not Pearl, Cisco and Lady and Shadow was a dog that there's an old hunter. In fact, he still hunts. He's like 93 years old. His name's Boo Kemp.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's up around Divine somewhere south of San Antonio. I don't really know where he lives. I've only met him a few times recently, but he had that shadow dog. But Boo was pretty known for he caught quite a few lions. He did a pretty extensive lion study with some biologists down here, and I guess it was in the 90s. And evidently that shadow dog really, really liked the lion from the stories. And that's kind of where that shadow dog got popular.
Yeah, there was a guy who had contacted me. I can't remember the name right now, who it was, about going and talking and sitting down and talking to Boo Kemp. And
he's a character. He'd be fun to talk to. He's got some stories for sure.
Oh, I'd like to. I'd have to ride my mules and take off about 6 months early now because of the price of fuel. But.
Yeah, no, that's no joke.
Anyway.
A lot of them, a lot of hunters. I'm a recreational hunter, but some of them lion hunters that do it for a living got to be hurting right now with gas and diesel as expensive as it is.
Yeah,
it cost a lot of money.
$156 for me to fill up my truck the other day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
in a year.
So let's talk about the lions then. So you said you're fascinated with hunting lions. You started hunting bobcats. When was it you caught your first lion?
I caught a couple of lions with my first pack of dogs. But I never caught a big lion. I caught a kitten and then I caught a pretty young kitten. It wasn't a kitten, but probably 40, 45 pounds, something like that. And then I caught a big lion in Wyoming, but not with my dogs.
Oh,
And
you
then,
went with somebody up there?
yeah, I went with some Amish people, and it was a pretty fun hunt.
Amish people with hounds, huh?
Yeah, they had good hounds too. Big old blue ticks, but they weighed 100 pounds.
I'll be dang.
Yeah.
So when you caught your lions, you were probably cat hunting, weren't you? And just
yeah, I used to go lion hunting all the time, and that's all it was lion hunting. You know, I people call me and see them and Black Panthers and all of that good stuff, and you know, when you're young, you load up and drop whatever you're doing and go to all that stuff.
You don't have to be young to do that. I was
No.
old and I did that.
But I tell you what, though, I wasted my time a lot. These bobcat dogs, and it took seeing a lion to figure it out. But I mean, I was roading the dogs, and a guy had called me and said he had seen a lion, and I was roading the dogs, and one of my dogs kind of bucked up in the road, stuck his hair up, and fella shined the spotlight over there, and there was a lion standing there, and that lion took off, and them dogs wouldn't run it. It wasn't a bobcat.
They were straight bobcat dogs.
You know, I had a lot of people tell me that a cat's a cat and all this, and that's not the case. I can attest to that. And it was embarrassing. I got on my knees and begged and prayed and pleaded. And,
did you open up?
I did everything I possibly could.
You barked on the track?
I had a dog named Tiny that was a very playful dog. And I got to playing with her and clapping, and she jumped up on my chest and barked one time. Not barking at the cat, barking at me, playing with me. And when she barked, all them other dogs came to her, put their nose on the ground, and took off and caught that lion.
Oh, no kidding.
Nobody wanted to be first. Nobody wanted to be first.
They were afraid of the wrath.
Yeah, it wasn't a bobcat. But I'll tell you something that a lot of old timers also told me. I had quite a few old timers tell me that if your dog will run a house cat, it'll run a lion. And my dogs never would run house cats. You know, I'd be hunting on these drain ditches and stuff, and I'd see them, and they wouldn't run them. And sometimes I'd even try to get them to run them. You know, just being bored and see a house cat run across the road, and they never would run them.
Huh.
And after I caught a few lions, them dogs started treeing those house cats that they never would mess with before. But yeah, them dogs would tree a house cat if I ran across one hunting after I caught a few lions. But before I caught a few lions, they never would run them house cats. And that's the truth.
You've told the story before, but in one of the videos when I went down there and hunted with you guys, but I mean, it's such a unique story. Tell us about your first pack of dogs and the sad story that happened with them.
I was hunting down on the river and south of Donna. And I don't know, it was probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was trailing a cat, and the dogs slowly came in. We didn't catch the cat. And I get mad thinking about it. But anyways, I had a young dog. In fact, a young dog that I named Shadow, that I really liked, and he didn't come in. But when my dogs had come in, I had let the tailgate down on my truck, and there was a berm of dirt on a kind of an edge of a drain ditch on some farmland. And I backed my tailgate and, kind of rammed my tailgate into that berm of dirt so it would be pretty easy to load the dogs. And Shadow didn't come in. I was waiting for Shadow, and I finally just laid down in the front seat of my truck and fell asleep. And about 5:30 in the morning, I heard Shadow barking, and I got up and I got out of my truck. And some of this I learned later, but there was a pump down on the river that they irrigated with. And there was an electric line that serviced that pump, and that line was down. And when that shadow dog was running, he ran into that power line that was down, and it, killed him instantly. And when that power line broke, it burned in two. When he hit it, it fell. And that everywhere that line would hit the ground, it would blow up, make sparks like you never imagined, and big loud bangs. But it did it in sequence. It would hit the ground and burn in two, and then it would hit the ground and burn in two. And from where that shadow dog was, it just went boom, 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 and that line landed right on top of my truck and electrocuted every dog in it. And if he'd have ran into that line 2 minutes earlier, I'd have been laying in that truck. And I don't know what would have happened with me inside that truck. It was close.
What? So you were standing out away from there?
Yeah, I was probably, 25 feet. And I was down on the river. It was 5:00 in the morning. It was dark. You don't expect stuff like that. When them sparks started flying and the banging, and I thought somebody was shooting at me. And I didn't. I mean, it took me a while to figure out, I just woke up. Sure. But it was bad. But when I reference my first pack of dogs or my second pack of dogs, that's why they got electrocuted.
How long did it take?
And I quit hunting. I quit hunting for several years. I think that was in 2013, and I probably started hunting again in 2016. So it was three or 4 years before I decided I wanted to hunt again.
When you started hunting again, did you go back to Reuben to get your dogs?
Yeah. And I got there was another guy. It kind of didn't work out very good for him, but I had quit hunting, so Reuben didn't have anybody to hunt with, and there was a guy that managed a ranch up there named Rick Forrester, and in fact, his son is Lane Forrester, who's a lion hunting in your country.
Yeah. I've heard.
And Rick had started hunting with Reuben, and Rick had a few dogs. And Rick quit his job and moved back to New Mexico. And when he did, he sold me all his, he sold me, I think, 3 dogs, 4 dogs, something like that. And that's how I got started. And then 2 or 3 months later, the gentleman that took his place had a big accident, and Rick had to come back. So now Rick's still in South Texas, and he had to put a pack of cat dogs together again. And that's why I say it didn't work out too good for him, but it worked out. It worked out pretty good for me.
So and he had some finished dogs in that group, or in that what you got?
I wouldn't say there was one dog named Steve that was probably, as finished as he was going to get. He was a pretty good dog. And, and I built my pack around him. And then I don't know if you remember Dace Atkinson that you hunted with us when you were down the last time. Him and his dad, I sold them Steve, and they built a pack around him. And, he was a good enough dog for 3 different people to do that. So
yeah, you bet.
But main thing, he was broke, and that's one of the hardest things, and especially in this country.
Broke? What's that?
Yeah, what's that? He said. 5-year-old dogs ain't broke sometimes.
I got some that are broke, but they're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. once they die, they don't bark on trash no more.
No, they don't. So, and you talk about Norman. We've talked about Norman Davidson a lot. I mean, one of the things that's always fascinated me about some of those old timers is you told me that Norman Davidson hunted every day until he was what? From what age until what age?
Till he was 90, if not 90, close. I think he was 92 when he died, something like that. And he probably hadn't had a dog for 2 years, maybe 3, but he hunted every morning, rain, snow, shine, every morning.
And he'd run coyotes and bobcats, whatever. Huh?
Yeah, he ran coyotes and bobcats with the same hounds. And he had some pretty good dogs.
I bet.
But he never. I think he liked running coyotes more, just because it was a longer race. But because he ran coyotes, he never could hunt with anybody else. You know, he'd go with you, but he couldn't take his dogs because, you know, they were in coyotes. But yeah, he hunted like Reuben. You know, he actually did hunt every morning. Reuben didn't hunt every morning, but you know, a lot of them guys that hunt, you know, a lot like that, they'll go out and hunt for 3 or 4 hours and, you know, call it quits. But they do it every day.
Every day. How did he get by the heat in the summertime?
He used to always tell me, you know, I'd see him at the coffee shop. He'd say, "You've been hunting, Cody?" He called me Fireball. He didn't call me Cody. He'd say, "Fireball, you've been hunting?" I'd say, "No, Mr. Davidson, it's too hot." He said, "You know it's hot on them cats too, don't you?" And that'd be the end of it right there. But he'd tell me that a million times. You know, heat ain't an excuse. It's just as hot on the cats as it is the dogs, is what he'd always say.
So the pack of dogs that you have now, are they bred, or they're more or less bred the same as the ones you had to start with?
Yeah. In fact, I've got some that are very closely related.
How do you compare this pack with your old pack?
When I first got started back, I had some dogs that were good dogs. They weren't as good as my first pack. And I've raised some dogs now, and these, you know, some of these dogs have got some age on them, and but I've got the best pack of dogs right now that I've ever had. They're quite a bit better than the first pack of dogs that I had.
Well, you caught like 70-something bobcats last year, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how many, 72 or 76 or something like that.
And 6 or 7 lions, something like that?
7 lions, I think it was. And, but that's, you know, on one hand, you can say I caught all those cats because I got better dogs. But in my opinion, I got better dogs because I caught all those cats, you know.
One goes with the other.
Yeah, and it's just a butterfly effect. You know, you start catching more and having more success. You start having a little more fun. You start going more often. And you start going more often. You start catching more cats. And you know, it's a snowball.
Sure.
One leads to the other. That's for sure. I mean, if you were to take the greatest hunters in South Texas and line them up from best to worst, I bet the number of hours in the woods would directly correlate with that number as well.
Oh, yeah. The guys who hunt the most have the best dogs. I mean, it's just the way it is. Typically, if you want to go catch a bobcat, if you're going to go bobcat hunting, how far do you have to drive?
I could turn them loose in my driveway. I could not drive at all. I've caught cats here, and that's one benefit that I have. You know, there's hunters like Joe Bob James and Rick James and Royce Blosky. I talked to Royce today. The biggest obstacle that those guys have is they've got to drive several hours just to get to cat country.
Yeah.
And, and that's a pretty big obstacle. And just not as fortunate to live, in the country that I do. And it makes a difference. And like you said earlier, it makes a big difference when gas is $5 a gallon.
Oh man.
You start talking about having Derek Edwards, cat hunter from up around Dallas, Fort Worth. He drives to Oklahoma every weekend, and just to go cat hunt. I mean, that's 6, 7, 8 hours round trip just to go cat hunting, and does it every weekend. And guys like me or you get to walk outside and start hunting. That's a pretty big advantage right there in itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I lived up on the mountain, I treed lions and a lot of bears within a half a mile of my camp right there. And I was spoiled, and lazy. You just get where you could just go out, outside of Lemuel right there, and I could just go straight on out. Well, now down here where I'm at, I can hunt right from my house, but it's not the best hunting in the world.
Chuck down there just put in one of my biggest advantages that I have damn ricochet. Chuck's what's turned into a very good friend of mine from Georgia. And, but he was down here deer hunting, and he killed I'm not even going to say how big the deer was, because it ought to be illegal for people to kill deer that big. But he killed this giant deer on the first day of his hunt, and he was bored and didn't have anything to do. So he called me up, and one of the guides knew me and wanted to go cat hunting, and took him out the first night. We didn't catch anything. And he called me back and said, I want to come back and do it again. I want to catch one. So he came back down and went hunting from us. And when he got here the second time, he brought a friend of his, and we were just loading up to go hunting on the first night. And he looked over at his buddy and said, now you're just going to have to deal with him all night long, screaming, God damn you, Ricochet. He says, all I do is cuss at Ricochet. And, he went back home, and a couple weeks later, I got a package in the mail, and he got me a dog collar for Ricochet. It says, God damn you, Ricochet. And old Tom and Chuck got a pretty good kick out of me and trashy Ricochet going round and round. That's for sure. But
so what? Okay, with your experience, have you had much experience with pot lickers? What we call pot lickers. So those pot licker is really just basically a tree dog. Not a run-in walker, but a tree dog.
Anything that's not a run-in walker, we call a pot licker.
Well, except like Julys and stuff like that, they're still running dogs, right?
Yeah, that is correct. But I
Cody.
did. So earlier, I told you that when I would go hunting by myself, a lot of times Reuben would loan me a dog. And Reuben had a dog named Beulah that was 1/4 blue tick and 3/4 running walker. And pretty blue tick looking. But, and she did it all. And she was an exceptional tree dog, but she did it all. And Reuben used to loan her to me quite a bit. If I was taking somebody hunting that I really wanted to catch a cat for, he'd tell me, well, take Beulah home. If you're going to take your dad hunting next week, take Beulah with you. And so in my older age, I wanted to try to replicate that. So I got some blue ticks, and I looked a long time. I bet I talked to 100 different people all across the country. And I finally settled on some blue ticks out of Colorado, come from a guy named Scott Young with Rocky Mountain blue ticks. And I bought a pair of them, and they were 3 months old when I bought them, and I raised them till they were a year and a half, maybe 2 years old, before I decided they were good enough to breed to, that I liked them enough. So I have had, a little bit of experience. And then you loaned me Dan. I had Dan the Man, your dog, down here till I got him killed by javelins. But other than that, that's about the extent of it.
The blue ticks that you had, what kind of differences did you see between them and your running walkers?
Not much. And they were mouthier. Yeah. You know, they barked too much. And even Dan, and I liked Dan a lot. But we would hit cold trails that were uncatchable. Basically uncatchable. And, my dogs couldn't even bark on it. They would just barely wiggle. But Dan would bark on it. And those blue ticks were the same way. They had some things in them that I didn't like. Them blue ticks, like barking, going to a dog, if they were in pretty thick, especially in thick brush. The dogs would have trouble getting through that thick brush, and it would frustrate them. They'd want to get there so bad. So they'd bark going to another dog. And I really, really don't like that. And, but I mean, they are colder nosed. There's no doubt about that. But, I really think that there's not a need for that colder nose.
Not when you have bobcats right out your back door.
That's exactly right. We hit a cold track and the dogs can't trail it up. Ruben used to say, come on, let's go find another one, and, y'all don't have that privilege where you're from. That's a little bit different situation. If you find a lion track, you better stick with it, because it's probably the only one you're going to find.
When I was first looking for dogs, I had talked to several people, and that was one of the things they told me. They said, well, there's two schools of thought. You get some hotter nosed dogs. And I know a lot of guys, Warner Glenn is one that said it. He said, back a long time ago, we had those real cold nosed dogs. He said, we did a lot of trailing and we didn't do a lot of catching though. And I think if you're in an area that has a real good population of your, whatever, your lions or whatever, then you probably would be better off to have a fast walking mule and some hotter nosed dogs and make bigger circles.
I know in that thesis that Roy McBride wrote, which I haven't sent to you yet, but eventually I will. We'll get together eventually, but when he hunted West Texas desert country, not as crappy as the country where they're around your house, but as similar as you're going to get, I guess. And but in his thesis, he said lion track needed to be 4 to 6 hours old to catch it.
I think, yeah.
And he hunted with a lot of running dogs. I think he had both. I don't know exactly what all he had, so I probably shouldn't be talking. But I know he had some running dogs.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of guys say that. Those guys who run those cameras over in Arizona, I've heard them say that you just to catch a lion, that's older than 4 hours, you start to track older than 4 hours, and you just, you're too far behind. But there's so many things that can happen. I think if you're on especially if you're on a nice tom and you're trailing and you can stay out there and stay on him, well, eventually he's gonna lay up somewhere, or he's gonna make a kill, or he's gonna do something that's gonna allow you to catch up. Now, if you have the time to stay out there and stay after him, most guys nowadays. And that's what I was told, when I first started. I said, what's the difference between these old lion hunters and the guys we got now? And, like me, I said, well, those old timers, they could just stay out there. They could lay out on a track and they would just stay after them until they get them caught. And shoot us, you got to go out and hunt for a day, 2 days, and then I got to go to work.
Yeah. It's tough, and I used to kind of always joke with a lion hunter from West Texas named Ty Vick. They're around Van Horn, around Alpine now, but I'd go up and stay with him and we'd hunt a few days. And it's tough country. It's very easy it's very easy for somebody that doesn't hunt that country to have an idea of what it should be like, and it's not. And I used to go up there with Hunt with Ty, and we'd go hunting and never start nothing. And I'd say, God dang, we ought to catch one with a cur dog as many miles as we've rode, but that's tough. That's tough country. It's just a different world. And if you don't hunt there and your dogs don't hunt there, and you're not going to have much success.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I've struggled out here in this desert for the last 5 or 6 years, and I've caught a couple lions, but not many. And it can be, I say frustrating, but you start second guessing yourself. You start second guessing what you got.
You caught some lions just the other day.
I caught one lion 3 times.
One lion. Hey, lion's a lion. You're not supposed to give out those details.
No, I caught one lion 3 times, and she was a female that was about to starve to death. I felt sorry for her, but I've been after her. Yeah. I like to make up the story that's the same lion I've been trailing around for the last 5 or 6 years. Because that's that same range of mountains back in there, and I knew she was staying right there. If you watch the video, I made that video, and I was going down there, not every day, but I was going down there fairly, often, because the river wasn't running, but there was pools of water in the river. And so I got to go down there and run the dogs and not worry about them, drying out and heat stroking. And we trailed her up in some bluffs, I don't know, 3-4 times, something like that. And we'd get up there and run out of cool weather. It'd get hot and the dogs would start shading up, and you get in those bluffs. It's just tough, and finally one evening I was down there. I just took the dogs down there, kind of rode them down the river, and I found her track, and she was going down she was down by the side of the river where I knew I could catch her if I got the dogs on her. And sure enough, I went down there early the next morning. I treated her. And then of course, I didn't want to waste a lion because they're kind of hard to come by. So, man, I took those dogs back, and I got some more dogs when we came down there, and we ran her, and we caught her about a half a mile down the river again. And then I got to looking at her and felt sorry for her. She was starving is what she was. She'd killed a skunk, and it killed a bird. I found some bird feathers around there, and she was starving to death. And not only was she old, and we're supposed to find out how old she was, but she had some kind of accident. Her teeth were all gone out of her mouth. And so I called a buddy of mine. I'm not real big on shooting them myself. And I called a buddy of mine, Robert, and I said, hey, why don't you, if you have a lion tag, you want to go down with me tomorrow morning, and we'll see if we can catch her again. I don't think she's going to go very far. Sure enough, we went down there and we treated her again, and he went ahead and put her out of her misery, basically.
You did her a favor.
Yes, we did.
When you sent me a picture of her mouth open, I mean, I don't think she could kill anything other than a bird or maybe a rat. That was a good. You did her a favor. She was fixing to have a hard summer in front of her.
Yeah, she wasn't going to. I don't think she was going to live another month.
Yeah, you start getting hounds, and the world gets a little smaller. You'd be surprised. How many. You'd go hunting with Ty Vick, and he'd talk about. He'd talk about hunting with Henry McIntyre and his flag dog, and it came from Henry Viatric. And then you go to looking, and you're like, oh, well, that dog's, parents were litter mates or something. It's the South Texas Bobcat hounds is a pretty small world.
Well, Flag and Easy, they were brothers and they were running walkers. And then Newt was a pot licker, and those were Henry's dogs.
Yeah.
He caught a lot of lions, didn't
he? Yeah, he caught a bunch of them. I think he caught like 349 lions, I believe it was.
And Did you ever talk to him about running walkers and pot liquors?
No, me and Ty took me by there. Ty hunted with him, and Ty took me by there to visit with him one day when we were coming back from hunting, and we stopped by his place there just to BS. He was in pretty rough shape by the time I met him.
Yeah, last time I seen him, he wasn't in real good shape.
Yeah, he was in pretty bad shape. But I did talk to him for a little bit. I think it was 349. I hope I'm not wrong on that. But I think I asked him how many lions he caught, and you couldn't understand him when he was talking, but he said 349. And Ty kind of looked down at him and said, "I bet you'd sure like to catch 350, wouldn't you, Henry?" And he said, "Yep." And that old man on his deathbed would look up and say, "Well, yeah, when I get healed up, I'm going to catch 350. I'm going to catch it." There wasn't no "I'm done" to him. When he healed up, when his legs healed up, he was going to go hunt. And, he did it till the end.
And say he was another one of those that probably hunted most every day.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a tough old man.
So let's talk about that. What's the Mexican man down in Mexico that's caught lots of lions and has been hunting for a long time?
Luis Chapa.
And he's on a big ranch down there? Or?
No, he's all over down there. I mean, he's a lion hunter. That's what he does for a living. He travels. He travels all over, hunting predator nuisance lions.
Okay.
Predation lions.
And let's tell the story about your cross, the blue tick with the running walker.
So I crossed once those blue ticks. I had June and July, a pair of dogs that I got from Colorado, and they both got killed by rattlesnakes. But I crossed June to my Ricochet dog and got some half blue tick, half running walker pups. And I was trying to replicate that Beulah dog Reuben, so I didn't want any half-bred pups. But I wanted to make sure that I could get my hands on them. I needed to cross them again, So I gave some of them to some friends of mine in Mexico, and I gave one of them to you. And that dog you called Jack. And but anyways, to make a long story short, those guys from Mexico that I gave those pups to, they really liked them. And that guy was kind of partnered up with Luis Chapo and some dogs, and they really liked them. They originally started them out trailing wounded deer, and then they were doing so good that Mr. Chapo put them on some lions. And now it's my understanding they do both. They'll go find wounded deer with them and run lions with them. But Luis Chapo crossed Tina, which is the half Ricochet, half blue tick, with his Canelo dog, which is his brag dog at the time. That's a running dog. And so these pups that I have now are 1/4 blue tick and 3/4 running walker. And just started them. I got a pair. Mr. Chapa gave me a pair of them. And one of them I call Beulah, and the other one's yours. I haven't named it yet, so I'll let you name it. But
I was going to say, let's don't forget that one of those are mine.
Yeah. And the worst part is that I've started yours, and and it's doing really, really good. I mean, the first cat I took it on, it ran every step of the race. I should have sent you that video to play, and
Yeah.
I sent you all the irrelevant ones, but I could have sent you one to that dog of yours running a cat. Chamoy. Yeah. Tate calls your dog Chamoy. I don't know.
Chamoy.
I don't know where he got that name. So Tate Scott's in the comment section here. He's a young kid that's 21, 22 years old, and he's been hunting with me, pretty much my hunting partner, since he was 15, 16 years old. And he spends a lot of time with the dogs, and one of the few people that, I mean, he comes to my house and picks the dogs up and takes them hunt. He's been with me a lot. He knows what he's doing, but I forgot he dubbed your dog Chamoy. So
Chamoy.
I don't know. It's a Mexican candy, is what it is.
It's a candy?
It's a Mexican candy, yeah.
Well, I don't believe in changing a dog's name.
There ain't nobody called her that but Tate. So that dog and Tate are both about on the same mental level. So you take that for what it's worth.
I'm sure he appreciates hearing that.
I give him a lot of hell, but me and Tate spent a lot of hours hunting together. And we load up, go to Mexico. And he's caught several lions with me, and we've spent a lot of time hunting. We caught a lot of cats.
Tell me a couple stories about your lion hunting. Now, how the lions that you've caught, have you been able to do a lot of cold trailing with them?
On some of them, we caught, of course, one of them was, we were looking at the cat and the dogs wouldn't run it. So that trail wasn't very old. But I've been cold trailing some recently. In fact, I trailed a lion, just the other day for a pretty long time.
Did you?
And, and that's one thing is I've caught more cats. My dogs are, they cold trail them more, than they used to. And I think it's just, they've finally gotten comfortable enough with them that, they really like them. And, when you catch a lion and you're excited, and especially down here, never caught a lion or you haven't caught one in years, and Tate never caught a lion, and we catch one, we shoot it. And these ranchers want them dead. That's the only reason they even let us hunt them. They called us because they have a problem. And, then after you catch a few, then you tree them, and then you jump them out instead of shooting them, let them dogs run them again. And it starts making them a little more lion minded. And I hunted a lot with Clinto Brown, who's a cat hunter from Southwest Texas, I guess, and phenomenal dogs. One of the best hunters that there's left, with a lot of the old timers that have passed away or retired hunting. Clinto's definitely one of the best, and that goes back to hours in the woods. He don't do nothing but hunt. And and hunting with him a bunch, his dogs really helped mine get, where they'd like a lion. But we caught one lion one day that was probably 50 pounds, young lion, and a tom. And we jumped it out of the tree. And I don't know if I sent you a video, that lion jumping out of that tree. It was that lion. And the lion jumped out of the tree on its own. And when we were walking up there, and they ran it for another few minutes, and it treed again. And this time when it treed again, we looked over and there was another lion in the tree the dogs were treeing one, and there was a second lion in the tree, and they were litter mates. And and the owner of the ranch was there, and they wanted them lions dead. They were killing some pinned deer, and the owner shot the lion, and we hip hop hoorayed and high fived and pretty excited, and we left. We went to another ranch to go hunting, and hell, that evening we kind of all looked at each other and said, "Man, that female's got to be around there somewhere." Those kittens still with their mama. And we went all the way back, and that lion, we cold trailed it a pretty good ways. They trailed on it and trailed on it and trailed on it, and they cold trailed that one for a long ways. So a lot of them I had caught, they didn't cold trail very long, but they did that one.
So do you think now that you've caught some lions, your dogs will leave a cold track on a lion to run a hot bobcat?
Yeah. I mean, I've had it happen.
Have you?
I've had it happen. Yeah. It, they were, and I know they were cold trailing a lion because I found the track, but it was cold, and just barely hitting it, and that's one of the problems down here. There's 1,000 bobcats for every lion, and it's hard to go. I tell people all the time, I just go bobcat hunting, and if you catch a lion, you catch a lion. That's pretty much all you can do.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of down here. Well, not down here because coon hunting's kind of hard down here, but further north, I imagine that they probably catch as many lions coon hunting as just about anybody, out there on the river at night, because it's always been a natural travel way.
Yeah. It's been pretty cool to watch my dogs progress from, not wanting to run a lion because it was trash to cold trailing one, that's pretty old, and that's been pretty exciting to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm a bobcat hunter. I'm not a lion hunter. And a lion is a novelty to me. And, I've caught several a year for the last few years. I think we caught 7 last year. But, it's still a novelty. Lions far and few in between. I mean, there's a lot of them. There's just so much more country, this big country.
The density, there's a lot of lions, but the density is they're not all packed in small places.
Yeah. And I got, when it comes to lion hunting, I got the same problem we talked about earlier. I mean, I got to drive at least 3 hours to go where there's consistently going to be a lion.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of lion hunters here are, most of them that especially the ones who outfit or guide, they'll break their dogs off of bobcats because you just have such a hard time catching a bobcat in this country. And then you'll end up messing around. You might cross, 3 or 4 bobcat tracks time you get to a lion track. And then you spend all day messing around in a rock pile somewhere looking for them. And you never get to that lion track.
Yeah. And I've hunted out there in West Texas, and them bobcats are just hard to catch. I mean, I've taken some pretty damn good bobcat dogs out there. It's they can be caught in perfect conditions, but I mean, it's pretty tough. I mean, I don't think you'd have much success at being a bobcat hunter in West Texas and desert New Mexico. And if you are, you're going to have a lot better dogs than I do.
Yeah. I don't know how you do it. I mean, just due to the fact that from what I can tell that, because of the brush and the humidity. I mean, a lot of those guys I've heard, you Texans talk about, you're dry, but dadgum, you're not dry like we're dry.
Yeah.
I mean, we get, 9 inches of rain a year, and
we've been dry, I mean, and especially some of that country I hunt in Mexico. I mean, they've had, mean, we finally had some rain the other day, but I mean, they had like 2 or 3 inches for the last 3 years. I mean,
really,
60% of the mesquite brush died, but that's not the norm. You're always that dry, you know. I mean,
was there still brush? Was there still some underbrush?
I mean, a bunch of it died. You know,
Really?
it'd take decades to come back. You know, yeah. It's terrible.
I mean, I've heard people talk about differentiating between like a dry ground, and bare ground.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we can trail an old track on those rocks. I mean, the rock holds scent really well. Yeah. You just can't move those tracks very well. It you know, those dogs, they don't have any way to pick their head up and go.
No, it's tough. That country where you live is it's about as bad as it gets, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why there's nobody else hunting this country.
Yeah. It's some of this country, you know, it's bad dry, but at least we know that's not normal, and eventually someday it'll change.
Well, I remember when of course, I don't know what time. I can't remember what time of year it was, but when I slept out there, when I camped out there by Rubens, and man, I woke up the next morning, everything I had was soaking wet. I mean, just soaking wet. It was like it had rained 2 inches, but it was just dew, you know, just dew. I don't want to hit it, but everything is soaking wet. I mean, the amount of dew that comes in is unbelievable. And they say it's dry now. It's so dry. But I mean, everything I have. Heck, in New Mexico, we'd call that a rain.
Yeah, and that saves us a bunch. You know, is when it gets real dry like that, is a lot of times you'll have 80. You may not have a dew, but you'll have 80-90% humidity in the mornings, and at least stand a chance.
That helps,
but,
yeah.
You know, if you're in that bare ground conditions and it's 15% humidity, you're wasting your time.
Anyway, back to Jack and it's always fascinated me. That's one of the reasons me and Cody had kind of got together. That's one of the questions I ask all the old time lion hunters and everybody I talk to. A lot of guys that won't interview, they won't sit down and interview, but I ask them about the running dogs, the running walkers. You get all kinds of answers. I mean, from some of the old time dry ground lion hunters, they have no use for the running walkers. And then you got some of the guys that said, you know, I've heard guys say, well, they won't hardly hunt a pot liquor anymore. And then you got guys like there's a USDA hunter up north who runs some part running dog, part some of his old stuff. And he'll sit there and tell you, he said, oh, you know, he told me about how many lions he caught last year and some stuff. But he also said, he said, oh, these are good dogs. He said, but they're not as good as my old dogs were. Whatever that means.
Yeah.
But
a big problem with the running walkers is the coyote pins. And I'm not taking away anything from coyote pins, but they like a different type of dog. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they don't want it to trail. They know the coyotes are in the pen. They don't want it to spend time trailing. They want it to just run around in circles and find one. They don't need it to tree. So a lot of that's been bred out of them, you know, and so, you know, just because it's a running walker doesn't it's the one you want, you know. And
that's kind of the conclusion I came to. You know, I think a lot of guys would get, you know, a running walker out of, like you said, you know, that's a pin dog and been bred that way for years. And they just don't work like what you have down there. And so I've got that Jack dog now. You've got some 3/4 running dog, quarter tree dog. And I took Jack because my best trail dog is P, and she's 9 years old. So I bred Jack to P. So they're going to be 3/4 tree dog or dry ground lion hound. I don't like to call them tree dog because then, I mean, these are dogs that have been bred to be dry ground lion hounds. And they probably might even have some run and walker back in them somewhere. Who knows? I got a pup out there out of P now that has a flag tail. And, but anyway, so I bred Jack to P, and she had 5 pups. They're just now opening their eyes a little bit. And I got a friend of mine that's going to take one, and then Cody and I are going to split the other. See what? Raise 2 of them running bobcats, and then me raise 2 of them doing what I do, and then kind of mix and match and see what happens.
Well, and one thing that me and Brett are going to try to do as well is take, what benefits that we can from each other. And, you start taking a 8-month-old pup, however old they are when you like to start them. And, you take them bobcat hunting once a week for a month and catch 4, 5, 6 bobcats with them. That does a world of good for a young dog that's getting started, versus trying to take that dog to where you live, although it seems lately you catch a lion every day, but that's tough to start young dogs where you don't catch a lot of game.
No.
And, if we take some of them pups, that kind of the best of both worlds, pups that, taking dogs that I think a lot about and taking dogs that you think a lot about, crossing them up, and starting them in South Texas and putting some cats on them, getting them cat minded, and then send them to you to the kind of, see a lion and learn the trail. I think it'll be a pretty good deal.
Well, and that was kind of our, although Dan wasn't a puppy, but our plan with Dan was I took him down there with you. Cause honestly, I had a guy that was trying that dog out, and he said he was worthless. Matter of fact, when I look back on it now, I kind of I don't know, I'd like to see him face to face, because he told me he was worthless. Said when I got him, he just had him tied up between 2 buildings out there, and his feet were soft and everything. Because I drove up there and got him the next day, and then I caught that Tom Lyon after I got back, and I sat there and listened to him pick up loses and cold trail all day that day before. And then I went down and I gave him to you, I gave him to you and said, man, try this dog out for me. Maybe I misread him. Maybe he was just hitching a ride with Booger all this time. And you called me back 2 days later.
That dog came to South Texas and country that he'd never been in, full of prickly pear and thorns, and and I even kind of rolled my eyes a little bit, when you sent him down here. I was like, what the hell do you want to find out if someone done told you he's worthless, and I can remember the first time I took him hunting. We were over on Delta Lake. Them old dogs of mine went to whipping on a cat, and Dan opened up and he went with them every step of the way. And he would, that dog ran in new, strange country. Like he was raised here. And I can't attest to what someone else would say or think or why, but what that dog was not worthless. I can tell you that much for sure.
Yeah. I was kind of
ran and treed and caught and fought, and he did it all with me while I had him.
And he was trashy. I admit he was trashy. That's something I have to deal with quite a bit because I don't catch enough game.
Down here, a lot of the times it's all private land. It's not like where you live, and if you get unlucky and start a cat on the fence line, and you're either going to go trespassing or you're going to stop your dogs. One of the two, if you don't have permission to be there, there's only two options. So I'm pretty good at turning those cats back when they get on them fence lines. You know, I'll run up and down the fence clapping my hands. And Tate has learned how to do it. But Tate does it with a lot more enthusiasm than I do. And we were running a cat, and Chuck and Tom were there, and all of a sudden we look over and Tate's swinging with his leg, trying to kick this bobcat back in the brush as it runs between his legs, and he misses, goes flying. Cat goes through the fence. And I told Tate, I said, stop the dogs, stop the dogs. You know, Tate was already mad at that cat. There wasn't going to be no stopping the dogs. And I had sent the game warden a text message and asked him earlier whose place that was. You know, I kind of found out whose it was. Didn't really have permission, but I knew they wasn't going to file charges on me if they caught us in there. They let them dogs go in there, and they didn't. I mean, they just about had it wore down, and them dogs caught that cat on the ground, and Tate ran out there in the middle of the brush to go get it. It was a pretty good hunt.
Where in Mexico do you hunt, Cody? Now, you don't have to be exact.
I hunt all over. You know, there's a lot of places in Mexico that nobody has any business being there, much less a gringo. But, you know, Coahuila, the state of Coahuila is pretty safe. State of Nuevo Leon. A lot of it just depends on where I can get the permits to hunt and what time of year it is. But I spend most of my time within 50 miles of the Rio Grande River, but just in Mexico. Someone had asked earlier if I had any lacy dogs. No, I had some when I hunted hogs with my dad. A couple that I had, I'd give them away. But
do a lot of guys use them for blood trailing?
You know, yeah, they use them for a lot of things, and I'm sure they make some really good dogs, you know, but I've had probably 3 in my life, and I never had any luck with them. But I mean, that, you know, I know that Roy Hines and some of them guys had some dogs with some lacy mixed in them for blood dogs, and they made damn good ones. And I know people have had some hog dogs that were really good lacies. But we never messed with them much.
Well, what do you think, Cody?
Sounds good to me. But yeah, man, no, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thanks for coming on. I enjoy talking to houndsmen from all over. So
we'll start. I'll start taking a little bit better record of some of the hunts, especially ones that our KV Hounds pups are on. But
KV Hounds, that's our new deal on our trade, on our partner dogs. They're called KV Hounds. I let Cody's name be first. So
yeah, friend of mine's from East Texas, a coon hunter's on here named Alan Smith, and he just made a comment about telling my brother I said hello. But one of these days he's going to get a real job, and when he does, he wants to start cat hunting. So we'll have to get a pup for him.
There you go.
He's a good guy and a good friend from East Texas that does a little bit of competition coon hunt. You think really? Cat hunters are crazy? You go dip your toe in that world. And
I've been listening. Yeah. I've been listening to those guys. What was his name? Josh. I think he worked for Joy Dog Food. And I did a little live here. I don't know. It's been a month ago, and he got on here, and I listened to him when he was doing the Houndsman XP podcast, and I really enjoyed listening to him talk to some of those guys. You know, they live in a different world than us. I guarantee.
Yeah. No, that's yeah.
And I don't know a lick about it, but they talked about how those dogs go deep and how like they call them wild or crazy, that are wild dogs that just go out and look for a coon. It might swim a river or whatever. And they talked about that one that treed the coon in the prison yard, and they never could figure out how that dog got in the prison yard, but got in the prison yard and treated coon.
Really?
Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah, that's them dogs are, you know, a different sport in its own, you know. And I was talking earlier about coyote pin hunting and kind of breeding the nose out of dogs. And, you know, to an extent, there's different traits that they like in dogs that you may not like if you were just a pleasure hunter. But when the difference in a dog striking a coon 30 seconds before another one could mean the difference in winning $20,000 or $40,000.
Exactly.
I mean,
big money.
They get into it, man. I mean, they breed for specific things, and it's a different world. But all the money draws a lot of problems too, man. You get on some of them groups on Facebook, and it's nothing but guys mad at each other and arguing. The judge screwed me, and you called my dog. And I mean, it can get pretty. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. You got to be pretty thick-skinned if you're going to be a competition coon hunter.
I imagine anytime you get that much money involved in something, it can get pretty cutthroat.
Yeah. It's pretty intense. I think I'll stick with bobcats. Hunt by myself mostly, and nobody has to see all the bad stuff. They just get to see a picture of the cat in the tree.
Man, I video all the bad stuff.
I know you're not supposed to do that. But that's why I only got 6 pictures to share with you on YouTube.
One of my missions was to show people how hard it is to try to be a dry ground lion hunter. It's not. It's a tough deal.
Yeah,
and I have.
And you do it the old way too.
Yeah, I have lots of respect for the guys who, the Steve Smiths and Mike Roots and Larry Hendricks and Johnny Clumps and all those old guys that they didn't have all the modern things that we have. They didn't have the cell phone cameras that everybody uses. They're just the regular cell cameras and everything. I remember talking to Steve Smith years ago, and I asked him, I asked him about a dog, and he told me. I said, "Well, sir," I said, "Yeah," I said, I hunt dry ground." He said, "You're not hunting dry ground unless you're hunting less than 6,000 foot elevation and riding 15-mile circles 6 days a week." And I said, "I got 2 out of 3.
Yeah, 6 days a week.
But he didn't. He kind of. And then Henry McIntyre, when I asked him how he hunted lions, I said, "How do you hunt lions?" He said, "I take good dogs into good lion country and I make circles."
Yeah.
So
that's all it takes, I mean, you take good dogs and spend a lot of time with them. But them guys are different, them old timey hunters like that, Norman Davidson and Henry McIntyre, and they them guys didn't care about nothing but hounds. I to give credit where credit would due. I mean, if you're going to have a very good pack of cat dogs and hunt very much, you're either going to be divorced or you're going to have a really good wife. And I was blessed with a really good wife. And but you got to spend so much time off in the woods, it's hard to do anything else. I mean, them guys didn't care about making big money, and most of them's divorced half a dozen times. Kids moved on, and
they gave up a lot to do what they love to do.
Yeah, wife come in and say, "If you go cat hunting tomorrow morning, I'm going to be gone when you get here." And she said, "See you later." That's it.
Yeah.
And nowadays with everything's so expensive nowadays. I mean, it's tough. To the guys that truly love it enough to try to make a living doing it, I tip my hat to them. Yeah. I really will.
Well, that's
And
one of the struggles that I'm having right now is, I'm 60 years old and I've never been able to hunt the way I want to hunt. And, I could hunt when I was in the mountains, I could hunt more, but I still had a lot of responsibility. And, man, I tell you what, I have a business and I have a hard time giving up that money that I make. And
yeah,
you get to a certain point in your life and you realize you only know one way to make a living. And I've had a hard time giving that up. I mean, I could make it, but maybe not, at $5.60 a gallon diesel, I might not be able to make it, but
no, it's tough. It's tough. Of course, them guys all sold hunts, so they had income from their dogs.
yeah, they did things to make ends meet. But I remember seeing Henry where he lived when I first met him. That house wasn't as big as this room I'm in right now.
And they sailed them guys like Dale Lee and, hell, Norman Davidson. He didn't have a house when he got old. His niece let him live in one of the trailers at her trailer park. And he was divorced and married again, and the house that he lived in was his wife's house. It wasn't his house. And when she died, he didn't have a place to live anymore. And they say Odell Lee was just a half-ass bum in his old age, didn't have nowhere to go.
Lived wherever there was a bed, somebody let him stay, he didn't have nothing really.
I'm going to come out
we're going to do? Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to wait until the weather's nice and it's cool. And you're going to come down here and we're going to take your dogs out and we're going to hunt your dogs for like 3 days. And then we'll switch out and then take my dogs out and hunt for 3 days.
I'm ready.
And that'll be fun. We'll video it and we'll share it. If it, as long as I don't look too bad.
Well, you ain't gonna worry about you looking bad because my dogs are gonna be sore-footed in them rocks after the first day. They're gonna be creeping behind their truck, just barely getting along. So you'll look pretty good on that one. But, I think that would be fun to do. And then you come down and hunt in South Texas and do the same thing.
Yeah,
and let everybody kind of see the difference that two different types of dogs do in different country. And versus their home country.
Well, when I went down there and hunted with you before, I brought Dan and I think I brought 2 pups or 3 pups, 3 young dogs. And those 3 pups, they wouldn't go. They wouldn't, they'd go with my dogs, but they wouldn't go into that thick brush. I remember Al ran out there one time, your dogs or something opened up on something. And Al, and Al's a pretty good trail dog now. But I remember him running out in that brush and coming back to me and just like looking at me like you're crazier than hell.
That place we hunted was bad prickly pear. And them dogs got to be used to it or they won't. They won't handle it very well. And it's the same thing. I mean, I'd go hunting out there with Ty Vick with dogs that I knew were good cat dogs. And we'd be riding horseback, and them dogs wouldn't leave the back of the horse. They just wasn't used to the rocks, wasn't used to the cliffs, wasn't used to the drop-offs, wasn't used to the horse, and they wouldn't hunt.
They just weren't sure what they were out there for.
It made me look stupid. It was embarrassing. And but it is, it is what it is. The dog's got to be acclimated to, everybody that tells you that this is the best dog in the world, and dog has to be acclimated to where he's hunting.
Yeah,
and and that's all there is to it.
I got to try out some of my stuff here. Okay, Cody. All right, Cody.
We'll see you guys. Thanks again.
Thanks for everything, everybody. This I'm going to save this replay, but I'm going to put it on my other little channel here. Anyway, I'll put it on that interview, stories, and tales. And we'll keep it on there. And maybe if the audio is good enough, I'll see if W Supply wants to use it on their podcast. So
Uh,
that'd be
yeah. If anybody has any questions or anything, y'all can shoot me a message on Facebook Messenger or whatever. So
And I'm kicked off of Facebook.
yeah, Brett's got into Asian porn over there.
It seems like Facebook doesn't approve of Asian porn. So
Yeah, somebody hacked Brett's YouTube and posted some inappropriate material and got Brett kicked off Facebook.
you know what irritates me about that as much as anything is you go through all the trouble. I've been posting things, and mostly on my Born 100 Years Too Late Facebook page, and I share things, and you work and you've got all those memories on there and all those people that you don't know how to get a hold of them any other way. And you get kicked off and there is nobody you can contact to get back on. And that all that stuff I had on there is just, I guess it's just history now. And
there's got to be a way, you would think, especially with as popular as people being hacked has become. But generally, you see people have to make a new profile. But you would think they'd have a way to sort that out.
Well, all they'd have to do, I clicked a button that said, please review, and they were going to review it. All they would have to do is go back and look at all my other posts. I've never posted anything like that before.
Yeah.
It's kind of stupid, but I really just detest Facebook. Anyway, so I don't even know if I'll ever be back on there or not. I like Instagram. I do some Instagram stuff, put some pictures up and everything. And then, of course, I like YouTube. I like to video what I do and share it with everybody.
I don't use Instagram as much. My Instagram is Wildcat Hounds.
Wildcat.
But I don't post to it as much as I do as I do Facebook. I probably should. But.
Yeah, I just started posting more to it because I finally figured out how to really how to do it right. And with the reels and stuff, you can post little videos. I don't know.
Yeah.
But YouTube still, I don't even. It's hard to believe that a guy my age can even do what I do with YouTube. So
yeah.
Anyway, and if people I always hate to do this, but if people like this kind of thing and they want to see me go out and talk to more guys like Cody and everything, you can join my Patreon or my channel membership on my YouTube channel, and help buy me a gallon of diesel to go somewhere.
Well, I can tell you this too, guys, that it costs a lot of money to travel around and do these interviews, and I'm nobody special, but a lot of these old timers, you can't get them in front of a laptop with a wham cam and do this from 200 miles away. And, and a lot of them old timers ain't going to be around much longer. So I know I really appreciate a lot of the work that you do, Brett. And getting, and me and Brett were going to interview Norman Davidson, and COVID struck and we never got to, and that's a prime example. That's a prime example. So, one of these days it'll be too late, and them old timers will be gone. So, anybody that wants to help out with doing that stuff, it's money well spent. I can tell you one thing: Brett don't make no money by the time he's done the number of hours that he spends putting them interviews together. So,
can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
My picture's frozen on my screen.
Your picture's froze. But I thought maybe you fell asleep or something.
It's past my bedtime already. So, yeah. So, but I can do the young guys. I call Cody a young guy, but everybody I can. I got some other guys lined up that I can do these little deals with, and I enjoy it. And everybody, I did a little poll on my community page on my YouTube, and they said Sunday night was the best. So that'll work. If everybody likes it, let us know. Send me messages, whatever, try to get a hold of me and let me know. If you have ideas of guys that would be good to talk to, then let me know. Give me some names and contact information. And me and Cody are going to try to do this once a month. So maybe more often than that. I mean, but we'll probably schedule one once a month so everybody knows.
Yeah, we'll start getting some footage of these pups. You know, it'll be something that I think a lot of people could benefit from. You know, seeing these running dogs and these pot lickers, tree dogs, and the crosses of crossbreeds and how they do. You know, it'll be a pretty entertaining experiment, anyways.
There I am.
There you are.
But you're gone.
I'm good because I'm gone anyways.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming by.
We'll see y'all. Thanks much.
Thanks, Cody.